Welcome to the course on the golden moments of addictions, alcoholism, and 3 principles webinar series. Welcome to the second last episode of the Golden Moments course. When Sydney Banks had his enlightenment experience, he had a vision that the 3 principles would answer and provide the source of healing to the worlds of psychology and psychiatry. So today, I have brought on a leading psychiatrist, Dr. William Pettit, and a leading psychologist in the field of addiction, Dr. Amy Johnson, and they express their healings in the way that from their profession. And then we finish this particular episode with a beautiful reading by Dr. Keith Blevens from his unpublished book of where describing in Sid's words his experience and his vision for bringing the world of psychiatry and the world of psychology together. I think it's a fascinating vision that Sid had, and I hope that that this particular episode will bring a feeling of hope and a feeling of amazement that one simple welder with a grade 9 education should uncover the answer to the suffering of mankind. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much.
If I was interested in learning more about relativity, and was a physicist, I would not start my journey with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation physicists who had learned from Einstein. I would go back to Einstein's 1905 papers as a physicist, and I would read them and read them and read them. And when I felt I had a sense, and I'd reflect and I'd listen and I'd get quiet, and when I felt that I had a sense of what he had seen, I would move on to see if anybody else had seen something with that wonderful, standing on the shoulders of Einstein, if they had had insights even beyond what he had had. But I would go back to where it began, to where some human being was allowed a peek into, to me, the mind of God. Whatever if you don't like God, then the mind of whatever was there before the Big Bang. I call that divine mind. If people feel more comfortable with universal mind, I have no problem. If they need to call it Curly, Moe, or Larry, I have no problem, because it's still the same. The labels we put on things does not change the nature of what it is. So I said, to me, we're made, that's inside of us. Sid said, happiness, people need to come to the realization, happiness is inside of you. But we have been given a free will. Metaphorically, we can cut off the channel so it doesn't fill us completely up. So I said, if we have a free will, we can pay attention to whatever thoughts we want to, and nobody can make us not do it. So innocently, you've been paying attention to all these thoughts of depression and anxiety, and you've been keeping this channel closed. But then your grandchildren come over, and you let those thoughts go for a little while, and you get present in your life.
That's great. That's great.
You get present in your life, and as soon as you get present in your life, the channel opens, you're filled up with a joyful, lighthearted, loving feeling, and you blame it on your grandchildren. And it's not their fault. And then they leave, and you get out of the present, back into paying attention to all your thoughts. The channel closes, your feeling goes away, and you blame it on your grandchildren leaving. So I was doing this thing that I do on the board, and I won't go into it. I'll just briefly. I say there's three things that happen when you start paying attention to negative thoughts. All kinds of biochemical dysregulation occurs. We do it in 3 minutes. We create a measurable biochemical dysregulation in our brain. 3 minutes of upsetting thinking. If you stop, then within 2 to 3 minutes, it comes back completely to normal. If you, in negative thinking, paying attention, activating the stress response, the fight or flight response for more than 30 minutes, you start turning off the wrong genes. Only 20% of the 25,000 genes we have are activated at any time. The other 20,000 are not even on. So things are not determined by our genes, they're determined by our state of mind. Okay? So I show this, and I show that as God has given us, or whoever made us has given us three levels, at least 3 levels of warning. If you get caught up in negative thinking, your mood will go down, your tension level will go up, and you will experience somewhere in your body pain, then sleep disturbance, and then memory problems. And you will create a powerful level of dis-ease. And once you experience that dis-ease, even though it's been innocent, it's trying to let you know that you're using these gifts in a way they aren't meant to be used. But if you don't know that, you will start to try to find something to relieve your dis-ease. For many, it's alcohol, drugs. I got to food. I hadn't even got to gambling or anger outbursts or hoarding or OCD rituals or any of those. I got to alcohol, drugs, and food, and she started sobbing uncontrollably. And she sobbed, and I pushed towards her a Kleenex and then sat back and gave her space. She sobbed for 7 to 10 minutes. And finally, she wiped her eyes. She started breathing normally, and I waited till I thought she was ready, and I said, Nancy, only if you feel comfortable sharing with me. Only if you feel comfortable. Do you mind sharing with me what just happened? And here's the shock, folks. She said, Dr. Pettit, I just had the most beautiful experience I have had in my entire life. And I said, really? What was it? She said, you've been talking about what happens when we give a lot of attention to our negative thinking. And you've talked about how we innocently create this dis-ease, and it's innocent. We're doing the best we know how. But then these things that people call diseases are not diseases. They're solutions that we've come up with to try to relieve our dis-ease. And I suddenly, when you went to alcohol, drugs, food, I suddenly felt total and unconditional love and compassion for my alcoholic parents, with whom I had been in judgment of my entire life. I felt unconditional love and compassion. And it was like 250 pounds of weight came off my shoulders in that instant. My life is changed forever from this moment on if I don't see another thing. Wow. Because she said, I saw that my parents and I were three beautiful human beings who had innocently created a tremendous amount of dis-ease with 12, 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day of giving attention to stressful thoughts. And then they went to alcohol to try to get relief, and I went to food. There was no difference. We were three beautiful people trying our best to find our way home. Given the limited level of understanding that I've gone as I've stumbled my way through life, I've made mistakes. I've tried to learn from them, and I've tried to make amends and go forward. But I see that every step of the way, given my level of understanding that I brought to the situation, I did the very best that I saw to do at that moment, that I saw that I was able to do. Recently, it keeps coming to me is understanding universal principles changes everything. It always has, and it always will. But this is the one area that hasn't, at least one of the areas, that hasn't found those before Sid came along. It's not, my wife is reading Synchronicity, which I'm going to read again. She's reading a book now called Presence. There are people, Sid said it, there are people everywhere. There's truth is everywhere. It's just that he was able to see this in a package and a clarity see the principles behind it, that it's the missing piece. But principles changed physics. They changed thermodynamics. They changed laws of motion. They changed when they saw circulation. People did not understand until about 300 years ago how the body's circulation worked. That it got oxygenated in the lungs, went to the heart, went out to the body, oxygen got used up, went through little capillaries, came back through the veins, got into the lungs, got oxygen back, got over to the heart, and this has happened 70 to 90 times a minute for everybody till we die. Nobody understood that. So the things they used to do, once they understood the principles, made no sense, a great percentage of them. It's been true in everything. In surgery, before they understood the principles of bacteria, they used to sharpen their scalpel on the heel, on the steel, on the bottom of their boot before they cut into the person's stomach and then wondered why they died. It was innocent. They did not know better. It's true. Psychological innocence is truth. It's truth. It's not easy for us sometimes to accept it for ourselves or others, but it's true. Beating yourself up will not make it easier for you not to use drugs or alcohol. It'll create a level of tension that you'll go to what you did before to relieve tension. Being angry at something that somebody did 20 years ago will do nothing except ruin your life today. Seeing psychological innocence is not a should, but it's vital to living in peace. Sid says, forgiveness releases you from mental anguish and pain and all the horrible negative feelings an unforgiving mind experiences.
That has always been a passion of mine in the last years. How is the community going to grow in this area? And I went on one show of Amy's, not as a guest, just a participant, just to see what she was doing. And I was really impressed with how many people came on the show, and also how many people wanted to discuss this particular topic. And Amy has created within her own a network of community. And Greg is doing the same thing with the facilitators in this room. And I sort of see now that I wondered how we were going to get together. And I thought, well, in my mind, it could be an organized thing. But what I see is it's organic. Amy's organically expanding it out in her way. Greg's organically expanding it out in his way. I'm organically expanding it out in that way. And so there is a sense, I'm starting to get a sense of community. And I would have to say, Amy, you're one of the leaders for sure in this particular area.
It's just amazing to see how a community just kind of grows around something of value, just something of, if there's like a nugget of truth or some kind of essence in there that you resonate with, it's like the community just kind of flocks to it, and I've seen that. I've seen that in what you guys are doing. So I think it's really exciting. And I think from what I've seen from people, now a lot of the people I talk to have no idea what the principles are. They have they maybe have read some spiritual books. They've definitely probably read a couple psychology type of books. But for the most part, they're just everyday normal people who are just really struggling, saying, hey, I'm smart. I've accomplished things in my life. Like, why am I stuck here? And why is it that the harder I work and the more I do, the more stuck I tend to get? That's what really throws them. And that's why I love them, because that's what threw me. It's like, this does not add up. I'm supposed to be able to just put my nose to the grindstone, work hard, and accomplish anything I want, which we can in many ways, but when it comes to this kind of deep inner change, like what I like to call a sea change, that's what that is so different. And so we're all running around not we all, but a lot of people out there innocently are running around, trying harder, pushing harder, thinking they have to pull the right lever, manipulate the right thing to finally get their change to happen. And until their change happens, they're doing something wrong and they're missing it. So they go to work harder and faster, you know, and it's like the most ironic thing in the world, because the more we're running around, the more we're missing it. We're just up in the weeds, up in our heads, up in the minutia and the details that look so real and big and deep and personal. And I can't believe I drank this last week, or I ate that yesterday, or I said that to my partner, or I did this in front of my kids. And it's like so much about that detail level of life that we just keep innocently stay so caught up in, because it really looks like if we can get that all worked out, then we'll just get to fall into some kind of relaxation. Then it'll all be okay. It's just that we're messing up so often that we're not granted this freedom or something. But it feels like there's and I know many people have talked about this, it feels like there's such like a tipping point that we're at with people getting this, because more and more, and this has been a huge change even in just the last like 3 years, let's say, for me sharing this. And part of that might be my grounding and how I see this. But what I've seen even in just 2 or 3 years is that people seem so much more open to the fact that, okay, this isn't like, life isn't my thing to manage. I don't need to just learn more, get smarter, work harder, figure it out. Like that's starting to not resonate with people so much anymore. I think it's looking so much more like common sense that, okay, there's something more to life than what I see and where my mind just, you know, the picture my mind plays out day in and day out.
You're very obviously of high intellect, and you see a lot of pieces together, and yet you're bringing it down to the simplicity, and that's where the clarity, and that's where people can hear it. And the other is fascinating, and Greg and I were talking about the fascination of all this stuff, but it is in the simplicity of what you're expressing that your growth is showing through. And that's inspirational for all of us, because as we see you grow, of course, we can feel it for ourselves. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And I've just seen that from other people so much, you know, like it never, ever fails. Of
course, isn't that the joke?
Yeah, it never fails that when I'm talking with someone and they're all about what they did, said, who am I? What does this mean? What about my past? What about my future? They just feel horrible. And when they aren't in that, like it could be the same person from one moment to the next, you know, it could be like, but it's like when the lighter we feel, the more simple things look. And there might be some real thing outside, but we're always going to be better equipped when we're lighter and things look simpler. This learning is the complete opposite, again, of any other learning, where the more you learn about chemistry, the more you're going to know about, like the more chemistry classes you take in general, by far, the better you're going to be at chemistry. That's not the case here. It's not a quantity thing, right? It's coming from within. So it is really interesting, but I do see that all the time with people where it's like, I want to tell them and do tell them sometimes, and I don't, you know, we never know what's best for anybody, but you get that sense that it's like, just go get quiet. Like you have a bit of a foundation that's going to keep opening for you. But our habit, and I think that's all it is we're so used to getting it through the intellect that our habit is, no, I need to get more.
think that's what happened to me in 2012 when I had my big experience, was that for that moment in time, I let go of that story of me. And I was just present to what was. That's the best way to have a great experience of this understanding, is not to compare it to all the things that you've known before. Just look at it as it is. Feel free to go back to your old thinking if you want. I have a feeling that once you let it go and you kind of get this feeling, this experience from this, you won't want to go back. That's how it was for me anyway.
I love that. Like, letting our feel, like, you know, in terms of getting constant feedback all the time, we can see it like that, right? The feedback is just saying, hey, let go. Hey, let go. Like, if every time you don't feel the way you did as a 5-year-old kid bouncing around in the yard, hey, let go. You know, like I know that's a big job because that's so completely opposite of what we're used to doing with our heavy feelings. But what if, like, that's the coolest thing, is just consider, what if that's how it looked? What if every time we started to feel this stuff bubble up, instead of grabbing something, fixing something, you know, worrying more, thinking about it more, we just were able to let go? Oh my gosh. I mean, everything would be so completely different.
Statement here. What would you say to somebody who is still in their active addiction or negative habits, and they're just coming across the principles? I mean, just brand new, fresh. If there's just one thing you could say to give them some hope and get them on track, what would you say?
Well, I love what you said earlier, Greg, about the best way to just be in a place to hear something from within us. So this points us back to within us, is to just, like how Dickon always used to say it to me or my earliest days of talking with him, was just like, be dumb. He'd say, you're just too smart. You just be dumb. And just like, sometimes people don't like hearing it like that, but I always resonated with that. Like, yeah, I do need to be more dumb. So just, you know, see that there's so much hope in this, because so many people have seen something from within themselves that has changed things that they never thought could change. And at the same time, as we're onto the hope that's in it, just kind of walk through it step by step, as dumb as you can be. Like, I have no idea what's here, what's going on, what I'm doing in my life, why I'm doing it, what's next, what's coming. But just be like a kid, right? Just soaking it all in.
I think we started with, you know, so he said it started out with, he said, in the fall of 1973, I had an enlightening experience and realized the existence of a world very few people know exists. From that moment on, I walked into a world that is invisible to the naked eye. So powerful was my experience, all the negative feelings and sadnesses that had plagued me for 42 years vanished like the mist in the morning sun. That was the day I realized all my sadness and negative feelings were all created from my own thinking. I had freed myself from all my past negative experiences. At that moment, I knew deep in my heart, if anyone could realize for a fact that we live in a world of thought, they too would find the happiness they were searching for. What I found that day was so simple, yet so powerful, it boggles the mind. Right there and then, I knew that this was the missing link and the answer psychology and psychiatry were searching for. This is the answer that could heal millions of people who were suffering needlessly.